empty. আকাশ ছিল পরিষ্কার এবং শূন্য, খালি। Not a trace of rain in the courtyard. He was surprised and saddened. The clouds had moved across the skies without shedding a drop of rain. Not a trace of rain in the courtyard. উঠোনে এক ফোঁটাও বৃষ্টি নেই। He was surprised and saddened. সে অবাক হয়ে গেল এবং দুঃখিত হলো। The clouds had moved across the skies without shedding a drop of rain. হ্যাঁ, মেঘেরা আকাশ অতিক্রম করে চলে গেছে এক বিন্দু বৃষ্টি না দিয়ে। তাহলে when the boy got up in the morning, he was extremely surprised because he saw that the sky was clear and it was empty. That means there were no cloud. Now all the clouds have gone, and this made the boy very much saddened and surprised. And it saddened him to think that he had fallen asleep. Had he stayed awake, perhaps the clouds would not have disappeared like that. It would have been the season's first rainfall. It saddened him to think that he had fallen asleep. When the boy thought that he had fallen asleep, and as a result of it, the cloud had went away without shedding any drop of rains. Had he stayed awake, perhaps the clouds would not have disappeared like that. This was his regret. It would have been the season's first rainfall. If the rain drops had fallen the previous night, it would have been the season's first rainfall. The month of rains was slipping away. He looked up once again at the skies. The month of the rains was slipping away. বৃষ্টির মাসগুলো চলে যাচ্ছিল। He looked once again at the skies. সে আবার আকাশের দিকে তাকালো। As the clouds did not give any shower of rain, he looked at the sky looking for the rain or the clouds. Not a single patch of cloud. The sun beat down on his head from a clear sky. In the fierce heat, he walked between the fields. His body was on fire, his throat dry. After crossing several fields, he saw a large tree in whose shade a Persian wheel turned gently. It was like he had reached an oasis in the middle of a desert. He reached the shelter of the tree and splashed the cool water from the Persian wheel on his dusty feet. Then he washed his hands and face and drank his fill. The sun beat down on his head from a clear sky. That means the sun was shining very brightly and hotly. সূর্য তার পরিষ্কার আকাশ থেকে তার মাথার উপরে যেন প্রহার করছিল, রোদের তীক্ষ্ণ রোদের প্রহার করছিল। In the fierce heat, he walked between the fields. Fierce means ভয়ঙ্কর বা তীব্র। এখানে প্রচণ্ড তাপে তা সে মাঠের মাঝখান দিয়ে হাঁটছিল। His body was on fire, his throat dry. তার শরীর যেন পুড়ে যাচ্ছিল এবং his throat was dry. It is quite natural that in such a hot weather one would feel like the burning sensation of fire, and he was extremely thirsty. After crossing several fields, he saw a large tree in whose shade a Persian wheel turned gently. He crossed several fields, many fields, and crossing many fields, he saw a large tree. বিশাল বড় গাছ দেখলো, and the tree had shade, and under the shade there was a Persian wheel. Persian wheel, one type of wheel for drawing water from well. কুয়ো থেকে জল তোলার এক ধরনের পদ্ধতি যেখানে চাকার সাহায্যে জল উঠে যায়। It was like he had reached an oasis in the middle of a desert. মনে হলো যেন সে একটা মরুভূমির মাঝখানে একটা মরুদ্যানে পৌঁছেছে। The sight of the water drawing from by the Persian wheel from a well seemed a very pleasing sight to him. It was like an oasis in the desert, because he was no doubt thirsty, he was feeling very hot, and the cool touch of the water was expected by him, so it seemed to be like an oasis. He reached the shelter of a tree and splashed the cool water from the Persian wheel on his dusty feet. The boy reached under the shelter of the tree and he drew some cool water and splashed them from the Persian wheel, and he washed his feet, hands, face with the water, and he also drank water to the satisfaction of his to quench his thirst. তার তৃষ্ণা নিবারণ করার জন্য সে জলকে পান করলো। তাই so this is the end part of this lesson. Next part, unit. Old man sat on a wall by the Persian wheel. He looked at the old man, wanting to say something but hesitated. Finally he asked, "Did the clouds come here?" The old man looked closely at him and said, "Son, when the clouds come, the earth and the sky know of the coming. But the clouds were here last night and no one got to know." The old man said, "It is not enough for the clouds to come. I once lived in a place where it hadn't rained for 10 years. 10 years? He was open-mouthed. He sat there listening to the tales. Suddenly he realized how late it was. Refreshed. The boy was refreshed after washing his hands and face and drinking cool water of the Persian wheel. He looked around. He looked around the atmosphere or environment, and he saw an old man. He was sitting on the wall of the Persian wheel. He looked at the old man and wanted to say something, wanted to ask something but hesitated. The boy, whenever the boy looked at the saw the old man, he wanted to ask him something, but he at first he hesitated. ইতস্তত করলো. He did not decide whether he would ask him the question. At last he asked him a question. What is the question? Did the clouds come here? মেঘ কি এখানে এসেছিল? The old man looked closely at him and said, সেই বৃদ্ধ লোকটি তখন তাকে খুব ভালো করে লক্ষ্য করলো। মানে this was also a somewhat queer question, peculiar question from a boy to him. Son, when the clouds come, the earth and the sky know of their coming. বাচ্চা, মেঘ যখন আসে, মেঘেরা যখন আসে তখন পৃথিবী এবং আকাশ তার কথা জানতে পারে। What is the tense of the sentence? When the sun comes, clouds come, the earth and the sky know of their coming. What is the tense? Simple. There are two verbs, simple present. But the clouds were here last night and no one got to know. কিন্তু মেঘেরা তো গতকাল রাত্রে এখানে ছিল, কেউ জানে না দেখছি। বাচ্চার উত্তরটাও খুব সুন্দর। The boy's answer was very much surprising. The old man said, "It is not enough for the clouds to come." The old man said that মেঘের আসাটাই যথেষ্ট নয়। Only the appearance of or presence of cloud cannot give rain. I once lived in a place where it hadn't rained for 10 years. The old man informed the boy that one time he lived in a place where it had not been raining, it had not rained for 10 years. 10 years he was open mouthed. সে এই খবরটা শুনে একবার হাঁ করে গেল, অর্থাৎ হি ওয়াজ এক্সট্রিমলি সারপ্রাইজ দ্যাট a place can be without any rain for 10 years long. He sat there listening to his tales. After that, the boy was listening stories from the old man. Suddenly he realized how late it was. Suddenly he realized that it was very late. He had to return home. He walked for miles in the sun and dust. He went back by the same dirt track he had taken to come there. The sun was still fiercely hot, but when he reached the mud hut, he felt a nip in the air and the earth was damp and underfoot. He walked for miles in the sun and dust. The boy began to walk to reach his home under the sun and amid the dust. ধুলো এবং প্রচণ্ড রৌদ্রের মধ্যে সে মাইলের পর মাইল হাঁটতে লাগলো বাড়ি ফেরার জন্য। হি ওয়েন্ট ব্যাক বাই দ্য সেম ডার্ট ট্র্যাক হি হ্যাড টেকেন টু কাম দেয়ার। সে সেই একই ধুলিময় পথ দিয়ে আসতে লাগলো যেখান দিয়ে এসেছিল। দি সান ওয়াজ স্টিল ফিয়ার্সলি হট, বাট হোয়েন হি রিচড দ্য মাড হাট হি ফেল্ট আ নিপ ইন দ্য ইয়ার। কিন্তু যখন সে সেই মাটির ঘরের কাছে পৌঁছলো, সে বাতাসে একটা ঠান্ডা বোধ করলো এবং দেখলো যে মাটির তলায়, পায়ের তলায় মাটিও কিন্তু ভেজা। শেষ করবো না, থাক, আজকে এই পর্যন্ত থাকলো, ঠিক আছে।